Welcome to Voluble Minds, reflections on and abbreviated readings of famous philosophical dialogues. I'm Colin Wulff, Assistant Director of Religious Education at the Fourth Universalist Society in New York City. If you would like to skip the introductory segment on today's philosopher and dialogue and go straight to the reading, the timestamp posted in the video description will help you to do that. Thank you for joining us. This dialogue, Apology, is the penultimate dialogue we will be exploring in our Plato section. It's where the narrative arc we left off with in Euthyphro really gets into full swing. As he explained to Euthyphro in the last episode, Socrates has been accused by one Meletus of corrupting the city's youth, and in this dialogue he makes his spirited defense to the jury, which, though called apology, is famously anything but apologetic. But now you are fairly familiar with Plato's dialogic style and how Socrates features in his work, so I think we'll let Socrates speak for himself by way of Plato, except to say, ask yourself how you would vote on Socrates' sentence if you were a jury member then. Does he seem sincere? Have you ever felt brought up on charges you believed were false, either in a formal, professional, or social setting, and found yourself beset on all sides by your opportunistic detractors? Will Socrates, so at pains not to elicit sympathy or pity in his trial, manage nonetheless to stir some in you? When the jury rules, will you think it might have done so differently had Socrates not conducted himself as he did, or is that sorely missing the point in a rigged judicial process? Today I am joined by Chris Cardenas, who will be reading Meletus to my Socrates. He is an old and dear friend, one to whom I am indebted for a significant share of my early on-camera acting experience, not that this is to be acting. Chris is a wildly creative filmmaker and composer and an experienced chef. Having previously worked at Disney, he is now the general manager of Whataburger in our hometown of Tallahassee, Florida. He has graciously agreed to go outside his usual behind-the-scenes comfort zone to participate in this enterprise, reading Plato's Socrates' Apology. Thank you, Chris. We will be using the translation by Benjamin Jowett, which is in the public domain. We enter upon the scene with a roaring defense from Socrates. Enjoy the so-called apology. How you have felt, O men of Athens, at hearing the speeches of my accusers, I cannot tell. But I know that their persuasive words almost made me forget who I was, such was the effect of them. And yet they have hardly spoken a word of truth. But many as their falsehoods were, there was one of them which quite amazed me. I mean, when they told you to be upon your guard, and not to let yourselves be deceived by the force of my eloquence, they ought to have been ashamed of saying this. O men of Athens, I must beg of you to grant me one favor, which is this. If you hear me using the same words in my defense, which I have been in the habit of using, and which most of you may have heard in the agora, and at the tables of the money changers, or anywhere else, I would ask you not to be surprised at this, and not to interrupt me. For I am more than 70 years of age, and this is the first time that I have ever appeared in a court of law, and I'm quite a stranger to the ways of the place, and therefore I would have you regard me as if I were really a stranger, whom you would excuse if he spoke in his native tongue and after the fashion of his country. That, I think, is not an unfair request. Never mind the manner, which may or may not be good, but think only of the justice of my cause, and give heed to that. Let the judge decide justly, and the speaker speak truly. Well then, I will make my defense. I will begin at the beginning, and ask what the accusation is which has given rise to the slander of me. Socrates is an evildoer, and a curious person who searches into things under the earth and in heaven, and he makes the worse appear the better cause, and he teaches the aforesaid doctrines to others. That is the nature of the accusation. That is what you have seen yourselves in the comedy of Aristophanes, who has introduced a man whom he calls Socrates, going about and saying that he can walk in the air, and talking a deal of nonsense concerning matters of which I do not pretend to know either much or little. Not that I mean to say anything disparaging of anyone who is a student of natural philosophy. I dare say, Athenians, that someone among you will reply, why is this, Socrates, and what is the origin of these accusations of you? For there must have been something strange which you have been doing. All this great fame and talk about you would never have arisen if you had been like other men. Tell us then, why is this, as we should be sorry to judge hastily of you? Now I regard this as a fair challenge, and I will endeavor to explain to you the origin of this name of wise and of this evil fame. Men of Athens, this reputation of mine has come of a certain sort of wisdom which I possess. If you ask me what kind of wisdom, I reply, such wisdom as is attainable by man. For to that extent I am inclined to believe that I am wise. Young men of the richer classes, who have not much to do, come about me of their own accord. They like to hear the pretenders examined, and they often imitate me and examine others themselves. There are plenty of persons, as they soon enough discover, who think that they know something but really know little or nothing. And then those who are examined by them, instead of being angry with themselves, are angry with me. This confounded Socrates, they say, this villainous misleader of youth. And then if somebody asks them, why, what evil does he practice or teach? They do not know and cannot tell. But in order that they may not appear to be at a loss, they repeat the ready-made charges which are used against all philosophers about teaching things up in the clouds and under the earth and having no gods and making the worse appear the better cause, for they do not like to confess that their pretense of knowledge has been detected, which is the truth. And as they are numerous and ambitious and energetic and are all in battle array and of persuasive tongues, they have filled your ears with their loud and inveterate calumnies. Come hither, Meletus, and let me ask a question of you. You think a great deal about the improvement of youth?
Yes, I do.
Tell the judges then, who is their improver? For you must know, as you have taken the pains to discover their corrupter and are citing and accusing me before them. Speak then, and tell the judges who their improver is. Observe, Meletus, you are silent and have nothing to say. But is not this rather disgraceful and a very considerable proof of what I was saying, that you have no interest in the matter? Speak up, friend, and tell us who their improver is.
The laws.
But that, my good sir, is not my meaning. I want to know who the person is, who, in the first place, knows the laws.
The judges, Socrates, who are present in court.
What do you mean to say, Meletus, that they are able to instruct and improve youth?
Certainly they are.
What, all of them, or some only and not others?
All of them.
By the goddess Hera, that is good news. There are plenty of improvers then. And what do you say of the audience? Do they improve them?
Yes, they do.
And the senators?
Yes, the senators improve them.
But perhaps the members of the citizen assembly corrupt them. Or do they too improve them?
They improve them.
Then every Athenian improves and elevates them, all with the exception of myself. And I alone am their corrupter. Is that what you affirm?
That is what I stoutly affirm.
I'm very unfortunate if that is true. But would you say that this also holds true in the case of horses? Does one man do them harm and all the world good? Is not the exact opposite of this true? One man is able to do them good, or at least not many. The trainer of horses, that is to say, does them good, and others who have to do with them rather injure them. Is not that true, Meletus, of horses or of any other animals? Yes, certainly. Whether you and Antaeus say yes or no, that is no matter. Happy indeed would be the condition of youth if they had one corrupter only, and all the rest of the world were their improvers. And you, Meletus, have sufficiently shown that you never had a thought about the young. Your carelessness is seen in your not caring about matters spoken of in this very indictment.
You are a complete atheist.
That is an extraordinary statement, Meletus. Why do you say that? Do you mean that I do not believe in the godhead of the sun or moon, which is the common creed of all men?
I assure you, judges, that he does not believe in them. For he says the sun is stone and the moon is earth.
Friend Meletus, you think that you are accusing Anaxagoras. You have but a bad opinion of the judges if you fancy them ignorant to such a degree as not to know that those doctrines are found in the books of Anaxagoras. And these are the doctrines which the youth are said to learn of Socrates, when there are not infrequently exhibitions of them at the theater, price of admission 1 drachma at the most, and they might cheaply purchase them and laugh at Socrates if he pretends to father such eccentricities. And so, Meletus, you really think that I do not believe in any god?
I swear by Zeus that you believe absolutely in none at all.
You are a liar, Meletus, not believed even by yourself. For I cannot help thinking, O men of Athens, that Meletus is reckless and impudent, and that he has written this indictment in a spirit of mere wantonness and youthful bravado. Has he not compounded a riddle, thinking to try me? He said to himself, I shall see whether this wise Socrates will discover my ingenious contradiction, or whether I shall be able to deceive him and the rest of them. For he certainly does appear to me to contradict himself in the indictment, as much as if he'd said that Socrates is guilty of not believing in the gods and yet of believing in them. But this surely is a piece of fun. I should like you, O men of Athens, to join me in examining what I conceive to be his inconsistency. And do you, Meletus, answer, and I must remind you that you are not to interrupt me if I speak in my accustomed manner. Did ever man, Meletus, believe in the existence of human things and not of human beings? I wish, men of Athens, that he would answer, and not be always trying to get up an interruption. Did ever any man believe in horsemanship and not in horses, or in flute playing and not in flute players? No, my friend. I will answer to you and to the court, as you refuse to answer for yourself. There is no man who ever did. But now, please to answer the next question. Can a man believe in spiritual and divine agencies and not in spirits or demigods?
He cannot.
I'm glad that I've extracted that answer by the assistance of the court. Nevertheless, you swear in the indictment that I teach and believe in divine or spiritual agencies, new or old, no matter for that. At any rate, I believe in spiritual agencies, as you say, and swear in the affidavit. But if I believe in divine beings, I must believe in spirits or demigods. Is not that true? Yes, that is true, for I may assume that your silence gives assent to that. Now, what are spirits or demigods? Are they not either gods or the sons of gods? Is that true?
Yes, that is true.
This is just the ingenious riddle of which I was speaking. The demigods or spirits are gods. And you say first that I don't believe in gods, and then again that I do believe in gods. That is, if I believe in demigods. For if the demigods are the illegitimate sons of gods, whether by the nymphs or by any other mothers, as is thought, that, as all men will allow, necessarily implies the existence of their parents. You might as well affirm the existence of mules and deny that of horses and asses. Such nonsense, Meletus, could only have been intended by you as a trial of me. You have put this into the indictment because you had nothing real of which to accuse me. But no one who has a particle of understanding will ever be convinced by you that the same man can believe in divine and superhuman things and yet not believe that there are gods and demigods and heroes. There are many reasons why I am not grieved, O men of Athens, at the vote of condemnation. I expected it, and I'm only surprised that the votes are so nearly equal, for I had thought that the majority against me would have been far larger, but now, had 30 votes gone over to the other side, I should have been acquitted. And I could say that I had escaped Meletus, and I could say more, for without the assistance of Antaeus and Lycon, he would not have had a fifth part of the votes, as the law requires, in which case he would have incurred a fine of 1,000 drachmae, as is evident. And so he proposes death as the penalty. And what shall I propose on my part, O men of Athens? Clearly that which is my due. And what is that which I ought to pay or to receive? What shall be done to the man who has never had the wit to be idle during his whole life, but has been careless of what the many care about? Wealth and family interests and military offices and speaking in the assembly and magistracies and plots and parties, reflecting that I was really too honest a man to follow in this way and live. I did not go where I could do no good to you or to myself, but where I could do the greatest good privately to every one of you. Thither I went, and sought to persuade every man among you that he must look to himself and seek virtue and wisdom before he looks to his private interest, and to look to the state before he looks to the interests of the state, and that this should be the order which he observes in all his actions. What shall be done to such a one? Doubtless some good thing, O men of Athens, if he has his reward, and the good should be of a kind suitable to him. What would a reward suitable to a poor man who is your benefactor, who desires leisure that he may instruct you? There can be no more fitting reward than maintenance in the Prytaneum, O men of Athens, a reward which he deserves far more than the citizen who has won the prize at Olympia in the horse or chariot race, whether the chariots were drawn by 2 horses or by many. For I am in want, and he has enough, and he only gives you the appearance of happiness, and I give you the reality. And if I am to estimate the penalty justly, I say that maintenance in the Prytaneum is the just return. Not much time will be gained, O Athenians, in return for the evil name which you will get from the detractors of the city, who will say that you killed Socrates, a wise man. For they will call me wise, although I am not wise, when they want to reproach you. If you had waited a little while, your desire would have been fulfilled in the course of nature, for I am far advanced in years, as you may perceive, and not far from death. I am speaking now, Only to those of you who have condemned me to death, and I have another thing to say to them. You think that I was convicted through deficiency of words. I mean, that if I had thought fit to leave nothing undone, nothing unsaid, I might have gained an acquittal. Not so. The deficiency, which led to my conviction, was not of words, certainly not. But I had not the boldness or impudence or inclination to address you as you would have liked me to address you, weeping and wailing and lamenting and saying and doing many things which you have been accustomed to hear from others, and which, as I say, are unworthy of me. But I thought that I ought not to do anything common or mean in the hour of danger, nor do I now repent of the manner of my defense. And I would rather die having spoken after my manner than speak in your manner and live. The hour of departure has arrived, and we go our ways, I to die and you to live. Which is better, God only knows.